Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Just one moment. Okay. So hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kate Rothstein. I'm the Programming and Communications Manager at NCJW Pittsburgh Section, and I'm grateful to be here with everyone this afternoon. We're very appreciative that you're joining us today as we have a conversation with Bill Gross of Fair Districts. And before we begin, I wanted to remind everyone that today's event is hosted by two sections of the National Council of Jewish Women. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, we're sort of NCJW Pennsylvania. We're a progressive feminist organization guided by Jewish values that has become a powerful force for social change, advocating for gender and racial equity in Pennsylvania. For more than 125 years, through our advocacy efforts and service programs, our mission has always been to step forward, speak out, and stand up for the needs of all women, children, and families. And at least in Pittsburgh and also in Philly, one of our advocacy areas is voting. So just a few housekeeping requests. If you haven't already, and it seems like most of you have, please mute yourself during the presentation to avoid background noise. We'll have plenty of time to answer questions. So you can use the chat function to ask questions, and Barbara or I will relay them to Bill. And at the end, we'll have a more open question and answer session, which, you know, if it can kind of happen naturally. We don't have such a large group as we're relaying questions. And if somebody wants to pop off and ask more questions, we can do that as well. I'd like to welcome Barbara Hoffman, State Policy Advocate of NCJW Philadelphia, and a member of the NCJW there. So welcome, Barbara. Barbara, you're on mute.
Okay, our speaker this afternoon is Bill Gross. He's a volunteer with Fair Districts PA. It is a nonpartisan, nonprofit volunteer organization. Its goal back in 2016 was to end gerrymandering. And the whole idea was to establish a citizens commission and to get the state government to support that. And in the quest to support that, well, it never came out. Fair Districts was still amazingly effective at, because they forced transparency, our districts were drawn in a reasonably fair way. However, they noticed that there are significant problems with how Bill's going to be passed, and therein comes Fix Harrisburg. And Bill is one of many experts from Fair Districts who is going to talk about what Fair Districts is. They want to focus on changing the rules on how the state legislature functions so that bipartisan solutions to all our problems will be given a chance to be discussed and voted on. And I give the floor to Bill. And I have a zillion questions myself about what we can do about this, and hopefully they'll be answered. So welcome, Bill, and thank you for volunteering to do this.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Kate.
Bill, I think you got muted.
How's that? Can you hear me now? Okay. So anyway, thank you, Barbara and Kate. I say I'm delighted to be with you from Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. I'm in Marion. For those in Pittsburgh, Marion is just to the west of Philadelphia. So it's a beautiful day here. It's cold, and I think it's probably the same thing in Pittsburgh, but I'm delighted to be here. This afternoon, I want for us to discuss ways to improve government by changing the rules. But before I start that, I'd like to start off with talking about democracy, which is literally people rule. and specifically democracy in Pennsylvania. Most of my life, and probably most of your life, it hasn't been talked about much except the 4th of July ceremonies or something like that. But boy, has it changed recently. And in the past few months, it's become a hot topic, maybe even a factor in last week's elections. Will democracy survive? Will it devolve into anarchy, totalitarianism? I don't know. But the concept of democracy has really raised its head. It's become important to our lives. I think that Abraham Lincoln had a pretty good definition of democracy: a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We, the citizens, are the government. We, the citizens, make the government work, and we, the citizens, make sure the government works for the common good of us all. That's the ideal. But there are too many of us to all meet on that village green to govern ourselves, so we elect people to represent us. We call them politicians. That's not a bad word, but it's people involved in the affairs of the state. And they're human beings just like the rest of us. And I'm talking about Democrat and Republican politicians. And they, like us, often put their own wants ahead of the common good, and they make rules and procedures and processes to make sure that their wants are fulfilled. And we got to remember the first priority of a politician is to get reelected. And the second is to be in the majority, because if you're in the minority, you don't get anything done. And in the process, government of the people, by the people, and for the people really has become, to a great extent, government of the politicians, by the politicians, and for the politicians. So Fair Districts is working to change those rules and those processes so we can get back to government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But before I get into that, it might be helpful, and Barbara alluded to it, to see how Fair Districts has evolved from one topic issue, gerrymandering, to the much broader issue of rules and processes. As Barbara said, Fair Districts didn't think gerrymandering was helping Philadelphia or Pennsylvania very much at all. We are focusing only on Pennsylvania. And since the Pennsylvania legislature was controlled by the Republicans back in 2016 when we started, we focused on the gerrymandering rules they established. Not the party, but the rules. And so we said that gerrymandering isn't good. We would suggest a citizens commission. I won't go into it, but enough people liked it. About 66% of the Pennsylvania citizenry, thought it was a good idea. The majority of the representatives in the Pennsylvania General Assembly agreed. Over 400 townships and counties and cities, et cetera, passed resolutions supporting it. And we had over 100,000 signatures saying they supported it. But it didn't get passed. It didn't even come out of committee. It didn't get voted on. A good idea that didn't get voted on. Now, not to be too gloomy about it, but I do think that Fair Districts played a part in the results of the redistricting we just went through. I think really the Pennsylvania House redistricting is pretty good, and Fair Districts feels that way. It was open to citizen participation, a lot of transparency. The Senate numbers, the Senate maps are just like 2010. Closed door, majority, no citizen participation, et cetera. But we think we did something well, but we also learned a lesson. And that's that not only did our good bill not get up for a vote, there are plenty of other issues in Pennsylvania which haven't gotten any light of day. Things like lead in water, things like unequal school funding, no limits on how much you can give to legislators, a whole bunch of things. And we said, we're just one example of many. And all of these bills are backed by the majority of the people. Why didn't they get passed? It's very simple. The rules under which Pennsylvania legislature operates allows a handful, and I'm saying a handful, of politicians to dictate what will be discussed and voted on. And if they want it to be voted on, it'll be voted on. If they don't want it to be voted on, it won't be voted on. And if your local House or Senate representative is not one of those people, then your representative has no voice in the legislative process. And therefore, and here's the important thing, you have no voice in the legislative process. And folks, that's not government of the people, by the people, or for the people. So Fair Districts turned its attention to building support to change the rules so that good bills with public support have a better chance of becoming laws. So let's start with the presentation. If you have questions, again, as Kate said, use the Q&A or use the chat, whichever one you're fine. I'll stop during the presentation to see if there's things, and you can, Kate and Barbara, you can feed me the questions, and we'll have time at the end. So let me try to make magic fingers actually happen here to share the screen. Get these. What we're talking about is fixing Harrisburg. What's broken and how to fix it. This has been an initiative which was started early this year when we moved from gerrymandering to this, and it's become our main focus. What we're going to talk about is Harrisburg, the ideal. What it would really be like if everything worked well. Harrisburg, the reality, the problem. Some examples we'll go through, how it can be fixed, and most important, how you can help. Harrisburg, the ideal world. I mean, good government should be that we have a representative democracy that's efficient, cost-effective, responsive to the people, and productive. You know, our state is meant to be a representative democracy, a system of government in which people elect representatives who are responsive to the will of their constituents and who run a government that's efficient, cost-effective, and productive. And the main business of the General Assembly is to pass bills that do that. So let's take a look at how bills come about in the ideal world. We're still talking ideal. First of all, an idea comes up, whether it be from a citizen, whether it be from a legislator, whether it be from a lobbying group, whatever it might be, the idea comes up, and if it's thought worthy, a bill is drafted, generally by lawyers, to make sure that the bill doesn't run afoul with other legal things, and it gets a name and it gets a number. And then it goes to a committee in one of the chambers. We have two chambers. We have the House and we have the Senate. I'm just going to make believe it goes into the House. It could go into the Senate just as well. And it goes into committee hearings. Now, the chair of the committee has complete control over that. And in an ideal world, he or she would be saying, let's discuss this bill. Let's get experts in. Let's understand the bill. And then let's vote on it. And if they vote on it, let's assume that it passes. Then it goes to the floor of the House. And the majority leader at the floor says, okay, let's discuss it. Let's learn about it, etc., so that the whole General Assembly, the whole House knows about it. and they then vote on it. And let's assume that they vote to pass the bill along. It then goes over to the Senate. And the same process, it goes into a committee and it gets talked about. Then it goes to the floor and it gets talked about. And then it gets voted on. Let's assume that the vote is voted out. It goes to the governor. And the governor likes it or doesn't like it. So he approves it or he vetoes it. If he approves it, voila, it becomes law. If he vetoes it, it goes back to that first committee in the House, in our example, and they redo the thing if they want, or however it's going to be. That's the process for an ideal way of doing it. Now, that's how it's supposed to happen. Representatives working together efficiently and effectively for the good of the citizens. But now let's look at the reality. The reality is any one of 6 majority party leaders can single-handedly block any bill that comes up. Yep, one majority leader can block any bill, no matter how many members support the bill, no matter how strongly the public supports the bill. Under the rules adopted by the state legislature, any one of 6 majority party leaders can block any bill for any reason. Who are they? Well, regardless of legislative support, regardless of public support, here they are. The House Committee Chair. The House Committee Chair has complete control over that committee. That committee chair can not even bring the bill up, let alone have it talked about and have it voted on. If he does allow it to come up and it does get voted on, the House Majority Leader has complete control of whether it even gets talked about on the floor of the House or whether it was even voted on. And then there's a Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House really has control over everybody because he's the one that assigns the committee chair. But he can, on his own volition, take the bill out of the committee and put in another committee. He can say to the chair, "You're not doing a good job, I'm going to change the chair." So he has really complete control over it all. And then there's, on the other side, there's a Senate, the 3 Senate people doing exactly the same thing. So it's these 6 people that can block any bill that comes up. So with this control, the leaders become what? I say they become puppeteers. The majority party leaders write the rules. And let me tell you a little bit about the rules. The rules are, first of all, several inches thick, and they come out the first day of the session. And they dictate how the General Assembly, whether it be House or Senate, does their business. It is completely written by the majority leaders. The rank and file majority and minority have no say in it at all. It comes out in the morning, and it has to be voted on by the end of that day. Nobody's read it. Nobody's been, even looked at what's in it. And yet, it becomes the law. The rules, the majority party leaders select the committee chairs. And I told you the committee chairs are responsible for the bills. The committee chairs control the committee agenda. They can do whatever they want with it. Oop, sorry, I got a little far there. If the chair doesn't like your bill, the chair doesn't like you, the chair gets a large contribution from an opposing lobbyist, he doesn't have to bring it up. And here's the strange thing. Under the rules, a committee chair probably has less than 0.5% of the total electorate in Pennsylvania. And yet he carries more weight than all the members of the committee combined, more than all the members of the legislature combined, is in fact more than all the voters in Pennsylvania. To make sure, and here's to make sure that the rules are passed as the majority wants, they often introduce a resolution first, and it's voted on and passed before the rules are voted on. And the resolution says no amendments may be made to the rules. They won't be allowed. So when the rules come up and somebody says, oh, I'd like to talk about it, the majority leader says, well, wait a minute, no, we just passed a resolution prohibiting amending the rules even before we voted on them. That's right. Absolutely crazy. So now back to the puppet show. Majority party rank and file members have no say about which bills get a vote. Minority party members obviously have no say about which bills get a vote. And minority bills seldom get passed. Let me just show you a graph here. This is since 2001. And these are the House bills. This is not Senate, but the Senate would look the same kind of graph. It's almost always the Republican bills that are enacted, and the Democrat bills are not enacted. Except, isn't that strange? In 2007, here, all of a sudden, the Democrats have a lot of bills. Do you think the Republicans are just being nice? No, the Democrats were in charge. So what I'm pointing out is, it doesn't make any difference whether it's Democrats or Republicans. If you're in control, you're going to control the bills that get presented. So while a lot of people say the election last week, oh boy, it's going to be a change, I don't know if it will. I would hope it will. But don't forget, first priority for Democrats or Republicans are get reelected. And the second is be in the majority. So I think we have to, we'll have to wait and see exactly what transpires if indeed the Democrats get control of the House. They won't have control of the Senate, but now, and the rules prevent bipartisanship. 66% of the House rules remained in committee, even though they were bipartisan. In the Senate, it was even more. 70 never got out of committee. So nothing gets done. And remember that Republicans make up about 39% of the registered voters. It's their bills that are getting through. 61%, the other citizens, very little can get done at all. Let me show you just, don't get into too much on here with this. The main thing to look at is, this is in 2019, 2020, but it's the same thing here. 4,199 bills were introduced. If you go down here now, are you all? Can you see the end of that graph, or are you like me with all of our faces on there? Can you see the 285 on the far right?
I see it.
Kate, can you help us on this?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. Can all of you
I see it too. Yes, I can see it.
Okay, fine. Why can't I, Kate? Do I have? Anyway, I know what it is, so I won't worry about it. There's 285. That means that out of 4,199 bills that were introduced, 285 were passed. That's less than 7%. That's not a great productivity number. And you look here. This is the blue are the Democrats. They introduced 1,242 bills. Most of them died in committee. A few of them made their way past the hurdles, and maybe one or something like that got enacted. The same way for the Senate Democrats. No, right down there. Now, on the other hand, the Republicans, who were controlled in 2019, they had 1,622 in the House. And yeah, some of them went down. But look at that. Those are the ones that made it through. It's the same way for the Senate. 761, a lot of them went down and died in committee, but a number of them sort of made their way over there. What we're really saying is that it's a fiefdom. The leaders of the majority party have all of the say in what goes on. And here's the main problem. If your representative has no voice or vote, then you have no voice or vote. Pennsylvanians want and deserve a working government, a government in action discussing the legitimate problems that we face every day, a government that seeks solutions to those problems, a government's able to discuss it and debate it and amend it and improve ideas proposed by both parties. A government, which we would say would be in action, that passes bipartisan solutions. But what we're seeing here is not the case. What we get is government inaction, not government in action. And that means, again, no dealing with issues which we, the citizens, think are important and which affect our lives, and which the majority of citizens would like to see addressed. And again, lead and water. Some of our cities have more toxicity in our water than Flint, Michigan. And these are kids that are drinking this water, and they're going to be affected for the rest of their lives. We hear about infrastructure, about bridges crumbling. Nothing gets done. School funding, unequal. Broadband in urban and rural areas. And broadband is an important aspect of our lives now, for kids learning, for people getting doctor's appointments, for people looking up things. It's not in some of our urban areas, and it's surely not in a lot of our rural areas, but it doesn't get addressed. Minimum wage, privatizing liquor sales. How many times have we heard about that over the years? Red flag gun laws, gifts to legislators. Out in Pittsburgh, you probably just heard on what do you call your Pittsburgh Symphony or Pittsburgh Orchestra? I forget what it is. But in the news just a couple of weeks ago, several majority leaders in Pennsylvania and their wives went to the Salzburg Festival with the Pittsburgh Orchestra. Not a bad perk, not a bad thing to do. And it was all given. We have no laws or rules on giving gifts to legislators. And there's a broad support for all of this kind of dealing with these things, but it doesn't happen. What happens is instead, a Pennsylvania legislature, which is the largest full-time legislature in the country. It's one of the most expensive. I think we are third in base salary for our legislators after California and New York. And we're among the least productive. So it's not a bad deal. You see the graphs going down, legislators sleeping, but that's okay. I guess. So I'm going to stop this for a second and just ask you, what do you think of all this? Do you think it's worth working towards change something? Yeah?
Yeah.
Anybody? No? Okay. Folks, this is what we're up against. And I'm not blaming the Republicans, because we'll see, we saw what happened in 2007 through 2010 when the Democrats were in. That's why Fair District is not looking at parties, we're looking at the rules and the processes. And that's what we're going for. And I don't care whether it's Republicans in control at the beginning of next year, or it's the Democrats. We're going to be fighting for the rule changes. And it's a grassroots support. So if you're interested in making changes, I'll continue. If not, we can stop it. Okay? So we can continue? Okay, thank you. Let me go back on then.
Can I ask a quick question? There's one question in the chat that's relevant to what you've said. And that question was, are the rules the same for both the House and the Senate? They each have their own rules, but they pretty much, in the House, the chair of the committee chair is in charge. It's the same way in the Senate. So pretty much they go dovetail, but they're not exactly the same. But overall, Kate, they are the same. Okay. Okay. And do you know of any other states that have this similarly strange system?
Very few. As a matter of fact, there was an organization which sort of looked at the goodness of governance in states, and they had a bunch of different factors. And they rated each state. Colorado was the best state. And it got a very high percentage. Pennsylvania got a very low. As a matter of fact, got a 0. It didn't have anything as far as good governance. And so we're at the bottom. Our productivity is low. And it's all because of this. We don't have good governance. We have a bunch of puppeteers and fiefdoms. That's what we have, unfortunately. So we got a lot to work toward.
Barbara, I see your hand raised.
I'm gonna. So how do we get the rules changed?
Let me start. That's where I'm going to start now.
Exactly. Okay.
So, if current rules block representative democracy, then we've got to change the rules. And let me just read you that we have the power to do it. This is from the Pennsylvania Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, Political Powers. All power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. And for the advancement of these ends, we have at all times, an inalienable and indefeasible, I had to look up that word, indefeasible means you can't change it, it's a right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think proper. So we the people have the power to make the change. And we have to use that power to change the rules, or nothing changes. So what can we do? Well, maybe we can vote in certain people and not other people, but we're never sure ahead of time how those people are going to end up acting. So we're suggesting a few small changes, and they are small. If a bill has a bipartisan backing, it's got to have a vote. In the committee, And if it comes out of committee and it's a bipartisan bill and it goes on the floor, it's got to have a vote. And if it goes to both chambers, it's got to have a vote. Now, the leaders are the ones who are going to make the changes, and they're going to fight it. But it's grassroots pushing, pushing, pushing that can make a change. And that's what we can only be advocates for. Let me go through some other best practices. Committees, and this is in various states, 22 states say committees must hear all bills. The chairman of the committee cannot say, I'm not even going to bring it up. Not allowed. So let's change that to possible rule change. Bills reported from the committee must receive floor vote. 18 states have that. I mean, a number of states have that. 18 states say it's got to come up for a floor vote within a certain period of time. It's an automatic calendaring. Majority of members on a committee can add an agenda item. A majority of the members on the floor can vote to add an agenda item to the floor, so that rank and file begin to have their rights. And that's what we got to push for. Other states have different processes. 4 states, Mississippi, Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas, have indeed some minority party leaders, party chairs. Nebraska selects its chairs by secret ballot. Ours are dictated by the majority leaders. Allow the full chamber to elect committee chairs. Require chamber confirmation of chair appointments. Chair needs written permission for proxy voting. They can't say, well, Joe Blow told me he was in favor of this. No, it's got to be written. So these are the kind of things. Now, we have no power to force the leaders to make a change. We only have the power of we as citizens to raise our voices as much as possible to try to get this done. So let me go through what we can do to raise our voices. First of all, advocacy is not a mental exercise. Advocacy is a contact sport. Thinking about it, oh, isn't this horrible? Oh, gosh, darn, heck, doesn't do a thing. We got to make contact. Got to make contact with the politicians. You got to make contact with the news media. You got to make contact with your friends through your organizations. And it's contact, and it's contact, and it's contact. What can we do? First of all, you can go to fairdistricts.com and sign the petition yourself. Add your name to it. That's pretty easy. You can write a letter to the editor of your local paper. Get it out there so the readers look at it and the editor sees it. And the editor probably has no idea what's going on with this stuff. And maybe at some point, there'll be an editorial board will say, we agree. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Tell your legislators to support fair rules and processes. Yes, that means getting an appointment to see them. If you're a little nervous doing it one-on-one, get 3 or 4 of your friends. Go and see the legislator. And be specific. Ask them, legislator, do you favor reforming the legislative rules? Don't let him or her weasel out of an answer for that. Would you vote to prohibit amending the legislative rules, legislator? And then you're quiet. And you let him or her say something. And if he or her doesn't answer your question, you ask it again. And do you agree bipartisan bills should get a vote in committee? What do you say? Tell them what you want. Rules that allow them to work for us. That means rank and file. And you're probably going to be mainly speaking to the rank and file, who know they don't have any say. And you have to be aware that they're nervous about going up against the majority leadership. Why? Because the majority leadership could say, the next primary, we're putting up somebody, against you. And by the way, we're going to endorse them. And by the way, we're going to give them funding. So a rank and file has to be careful. But if your representative hears enough from you, hopefully they'll begin to move a little bit. But tell them what you want. Spread the word. Request, I don't, you're probably involved in other organizations. Request a Fair Districts PA speaker. I'd be happy to speak with them. If you don't like my style, that's fine. You go to Fix Harrisburg, you say, I want a speaker. By the way, I don't want Bill Gross. And they'll get you a speaker. That's fine. And they'll get somebody else for you. That's great. Talk with your friends. They probably don't even know what's going on. You're the expert now. Talk to them about what's going on. Encourage organizations, your school boards, your municipal governments to sign our Fix Harrisburg resolution. Again, it's on the fixharrisburg.org website. All of these things we can do. We can't write we can't write the rules. We've got to get people to, obviously our General Assembly people are writing the rules, but we want to try to push them to be a little more relaxed and let rank and file get involved to some extent. Use your social media. Get the word out. I mean, if it goes from 10 people, it's 100 people in a few minutes. Let people know, spread the word that we have this problem and that we can only solve it if we speak up. And again, thinking about it doesn't make any difference. It's contacting your legislator, the newspaper, your friends. And finally, it's volunteering. Get involved with fair districts. Again, there are ways to do that. It's talked about because you'll get energized. It's a great bunch of people, I must say, on this whole thing. But get involved, because really the only thing that we can do is just sort of keep going. Grassroots is frustrating at times, but it can be rewarding at times. So we have to raise our voices in support of changing the rules so your voices will be heard as good bills are discussed. Do your part to ensure that Pennsylvania's government is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It's our civic duty. So with that, I'll say thank you very much. And had time for questions. I don't know how much time we have, but Kate and Barbara, I'll let you be the MCs and the moderators on this.
Yeah. So the first question that I see is from Liz, who says, how could our legislature be forced to allow referendum on our ballots, like many other states? So a referendum on our ballots, like other states.
How could they give me an example, Liz?
Well, in many states like Colorado or California, if you get a petition with a certain number of signatures on it, you can actually get something on the ballot. And under our current rules, we're not allowed to do that. So nothing can be a grassroots bill in Pennsylvania at this point. But I mean, I would hope that if we could find a way to change the rules, that could be something that would be able to move forward. Could that be a good talking point in moving forward?
It is. We have to realize, and we learned this fair districts with gerrymandering and the Citizens Commission. We cannot write the bills.
Right.
We can't force them. There's nothing legally that says you have the right or I have the right to. It goes through the legislature. So all of these things, all we can do is raise our voices, and hopefully the more voices we raise, the louder it is and the more they'll hear.
Right. And if we put this up as something, hey, wouldn't you like it if in Pennsylvania we could do that? That might be something that might motivate people to feel like it was worthwhile.
Exactly. And when you go to a legislator, you raise that exact, if that's a point, you raise that issue.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's frustrating because we elect them to represent us, and we can, when they're up for re-election, we can evaluate whether we want to vote for them again. But we still don't know how they're going to act once they get elected.
Yeah.
Other things?
Okay, Liz Perkins, if the House has a Democratic majority, do you think the new speaker will keep the old rules out of revenge?
Well, I've talked to the new leader. No, I will tell you an experience we had when we were talking to Democrats and Republicans about going to a Citizens Commission. A lot of Democrats thought that was a great idea. I'm for it. Until they thought maybe before the last election that they might get control of the House. They didn't, but they thought they might. And some of those Democrats who were great supporters then started waffling and saying, well, I sort of like the rules the way they are because I may be able to control it. So I don't know. All I can do is go back again to remember that graph, 2007 through 2010, when the Democrats were in control? They were just as bad as the Republicans. All the bills were Democrat bills. So I don't know. I would hope so. But all we can do, fair districts will be pushing this no matter what party is in control. Let's put it that way, because we're not going to take it for granted that any one party is going to be so wonderful that it's going to say, we'll be fair.
Okay, Adrian Young, what to do about the legislature putting up PA constitutional amendments that show up in usually primary elections with low turnout, and then people are on automatic pilot and vote yes. And
if they can, that's part of it with the Constitution. It takes 2 years to do it. So it's a little harder. It has to pass the House and the Senate in year one. And then it has to pass the House and the Senate in exactly the same words the second year. And if it gets passed, then it can go on the ballot. And the Republicans have been using that technique very effectively, because we find that generally it's on the ballot. People say, well, I guess it's a good, I guess it's a good change. It sounds good, so I'll vote for it. And there's a propensity to do that. If you don't study the bill, and most people don't study the bill. So it's very frustrating, but that's the way our Constitution is.
You mentioned I had gone to several fair districts, Fix Harrisburg meetings. The advocacy through fair districts, where you're trying to organize that groups meet with all the legislators. Now that they're all, well, we don't know, most of them, we know who they are. We're down to 3 unknowns. So My understanding is that you need volunteers to organize to meet with these groups, even if they're
Yeah,
not.
we did this for the for the Citizens Commission.
Yeah, I remember.
And I think we spoke with almost all 253. That's how many senators and representatives we have in Pennsylvania. I was sort of captaining 5 different groups of volunteers, speaking with their particular legislator. It's a huge, huge job to do. I don't know, very truthfully, how many minds we changed, but we tried it. I don't know. I haven't seen anything specifically about this for the fixed Harrisburg to try that again. But if it comes up, I really would encourage all of you to sign up. First of all, get on the Fair District website so that you can get announcements that come out if you're interested in volunteering. And the nice thing is you can volunteer for an hour, you can volunteer for your life, you can, however you want to do it. So it's up to you, but getting on their website and getting to be one of their email things really is helpful for that. And if they do come up with this again for knocking on the doors of every single representative, I encourage you to do it. It's a lot. You learn a lot because you've got to be ready, because I mean, the legislator doesn't really know that much about the bill generally, but I'll tell you, his staff does. And so they're geared up for you. And of course, we were for the Republicans, we're not for it, and they were very much geared up for it. So you had to be on your toes, and you had to know what the points were to talk to. So it was an interesting experience. I think all of us learned a lot, and if we do it again, we'll be better at it. But it's a worthwhile thing, and it just got a lot of people aware of it, a lot of the deal.
It seems I guess maybe one can't revise the book, but one can get rid of the no amendments thing that comes before it, which would then and then people can make suggestions.
You can only get rid of the amendments if you change the rules.
Yeah.
There's no real, I mean, I wish there were an easy answer. There's not. Our Pennsylvania government has these rules in place. We can hope that if the Democrats get in charge for the House, so they're not going to get involved in charge of the Senate. The Senate's going to stay the same. Maybe there's going to be some more softness about changing the rules, or maybe they might change some of the rules. It's just, again, this is the ideal time to do it, because a lot of them are new. So get to them now. Get out there and knock on their door and say, I know you're not my representative yet, but you're going to be. And here's one I want you to think about, because the very first day you're in session, you're going to get this, you're going to get some kind of rule book. So now is the best time before they get sort of cemented in to how they're going to operate for the next session.
So,
sorry, we don't have a magic wand.
yeah. So Mal and Harriet, they have a question. Is that the same question? You can go ahead and go off mute if you want the same one you put in the chat.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
In the interest of accountability, what is the possibility of developing a report card for voters that would identify proposed bills and show their trajectory through the state legislatures?
Well, we know who's sponsoring and who's not sponsoring bills. You can go to the PA General Assembly, you can see that. I don't know if the League of Women Voters, of which Fair District is a part, by the way, they sometimes do ratings and check things like that. We did for citizens, we had a list of all of the representatives who were sponsoring that bill, and that was on our website, so you could see that. I don't think we have that for Fix Harrisburg because we don't have a real bill yet that's been proposed that I know of. We have bills for some of the issues that are not getting addressed right now, but we don't have a bill for. We want to change this process.
What do you think the likelihood might be for local political parties to host a town meeting, inviting representatives from both parties to come and talk about rule changes?
I think that would be a wonderful thing, and as a matter of fact, I like it so much. I'm going to put it down and see if Fair Districts would be at all interested in that. On the other hand, I would think that the NCJW could do it too. You nonprofit 501c3s, you can advocate for things, you just can't advocate for a party or a person. So if that was something that you, on the national basis or on your section or whatever it might be, you could do that with some of your local people as well. But I want to put it down just to see Fair Districts.
Well,
Trying to do.
We're going to be advocating the election's over, so we're not going to be picking a candidate, but we basically could speak to the elected official and tell them what we think would be good governance.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting. I think just get the people who are going to represent you
right
in your little area, together, and say we'd like to have you, to discuss this with you, and you might have Republicans and you might have Democrats.
True, and our community newspapers might be interested in coverage also.
Yeah, that gets back again to write to your editor, write letters to the editor. Make them aware that there are people who are interested in this. I'm sure they don't know about it. So if you got a whole bunch of people writing, the editor of the local paper is going to say, "Oh my gosh, this is a story that we can do," and you can get involved. Exactly.
Does Fix Harrisburg have some volunteers who could help novices put together a letter?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you can go to Fix Harrisburg or go to Fair Districts Pennsylvania, and they'll even almost write they've got model letters.
Okay.
Yeah, Fair Districts Pennsylvania.
If
it's FD. It's, by the way, it's fdpa.com.
If, for instance, the leader of our political party or local political party showed interest, let's say I contact her, she shows interest, but she would like to speak with someone from Fair Districts, who would she contact? Just anyone?
Yeah, what party is she?
In Springfield Township, she's the Democratic Party.
Democrat, okay.
Right, but
right.
I think of her as someone who that would reach out for for the good.
Okay, why don't I mean, I'd be happy to talk to her, and find out, and there's other people I can pull in on a conversation from fair districts.
Okay, good.
What's her name?
Her name is Carol Lockhart.
Lockhart?
HARD.
It's Lockhart. Carol?
Yes.
And what is she?
She's the head of our Democratic Party in Springfield,
Down in Delaware County,
Montgomery County.
Montgomery County.
Yes. Mhm.
Well, I thought is there Springfield, Montgomery County, as well as Delaware County, I guess, huh?
Right. And I believe there's one
Okay.
in Buckinghamshire.
Okay. All right. Do you happen to have her number? I'll look it up if you don't.
I can get it, I'm sure. I will get my
Okay.
directory.
Here's
here.
here's my email. WMGROSS, the number 4@verizon.net.
Got it. Okay.
And if anybody wants it, that's fine. And if you want to get hold of me, that's fine.
Let's see.
I want to make sure I'm respectful of everybody's time. And I also want to thank you, Bill and Barbara, for being with us here this afternoon and for giving such an amazing presentation. I would not block you from from being a presenter. I thought you were great.
Thank you.
So thank you. And the visuals were great. And the hour went by very quickly. And if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to email Bill, I assume. You can also email either NCJW Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, and we will relay them. I'm going to be sending out just a follow-up email so you can respond to that. So I just want to thank everybody for being here to become aware of this issue and to work towards changing the rules. And Barbara, do you have any final statements?
Bill, you made what would be considered a very wonky topic very relevant and very interesting. And how would our members access the recording, Kate?
It will be posted on our website probably in the next couple of days. If you go to ncjwpghevents.org and then go to past events, it will be there.
Okay, so we will definitely get out the message to the Philly section. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, Bill.
It was very fun.
Yes,
That's
thank you
great.
very
And
much to everyone.
Kate,